I'm going to bring up first of our four questioners. Please join me in welcoming Autumn Harry, who is a student right here at UNR. Autumn.
I'd like to introduce myself in my Paiute language. Hamu, nu Autumn Harry Minarea, nu Kiwi Takata, nu Kiwi Pa Punanadawe. Hello, Senator Sanders. My name is Autumn Harry, and I am a student here at the University of Nevada, Reno. And I'd just like to welcome you to the ancestral territories of the Numu, also known as the Paiute people. I have served as a delegate to the United Nations, and I continue to represent Indigenous youth from North America within the international arena. As Indigenous peoples, we have a responsibility to respect, maintain, and strengthen our relationship with our traditional lands and territories. Today, Indigenous homelands across the country are threatened by destructive fossil fuel resource extraction methods such as fracking, tar sands pipelines, and mining. These industrial practices have already left a legacy of contamination, and it will continue to shape long-term impacts not only to our vital natural resources, but to our cultural and traditional well-being. Another important issue Indigenous peoples face is us having the highest rate of youth suicide within the nation. Young people are taking their own lives because they have no hope. They are often faced with extreme poverty, systemic racism, and intergenerational trauma. There remains insufficient awareness of these injustices, and lack of cultural identity are central to the suffering of our Indigenous youth. We can change this reality by creating Indigenous-based education programs and employment opportunities for our youth. Government and tribal nations need to develop continuing dynamic dialogue and comprehensive strategies for improving quality of life within our communities. This vision may be accomplished through the planning and support of community-based, Indigenous-led initiatives to revitalize our infrastructure, restore Indigenous languages, strengthen cultural identity, and reaffirm our right to self-determination. Ultimately, the decisions we make today are going to affect the future generations to come. Senator Sanders, I know you have spoken about large investments to benefit rural and low-income communities. What are your plans for investing in and supporting Indigenous peoples, and are you prepared to take significant transformative action?
Thank you very much for your description of some of the tragic circumstances right now which are facing the Indigenous people. So let me just very briefly touch on some of your issues. On number one, I think if you check my record, you will find that I have stood up and will continue to stand up to mining extraction companies that are trying to invade Indigenous territory, okay? Number two, I do that because I know, as every person in this room knows, and we don't have to go through the whole sordid history of what has happened to the Native American people in this country from the day of the first settlers coming here. We all know what it is. It is a tragedy beyond belief, all right? And I know, and I sometimes feel hesitant to say these things because the Native American people have been hearing speeches for a very, very long time, yes, that have not turned into action. But I believe that we have a moral responsibility to make certain that we treat the Native American communities with the respect that has long, long, long been denied them. There is no excuse. I mean, it is not only copper companies coming in trying to take over Native American land and poison that land. But there is no excuse that we have rates of unemployment, of suicide, of alcoholism, which is unparalleled in America. So I think if you check my record, you will find that I have always stood with the oppressed people of this country, and there are no people who have been more oppressed than the indigenous people of this country. So yes, I will stand with you and do everything that I can to bring dignity and respect and economic opportunity to those people who do not have it today.
Senator Sanders, if I could follow up with you on this question, and I know you've been getting this conversation about the rigged rules of the economy, particularly in communities of color, particularly in indigenous communities. And the feeling from many of these communities that I've been hearing is that their stories aren't heard in the larger story of inequality. So can you quickly respond in terms of how you and other politicians, not just you, should be responding to the particular harms and the stories around the history and the rigged rules that have affected communities of color and indigenous communities?
Thank you. When we talk about a rigged economy where the rich get richer and almost everybody else gets poorer, it's important to understand that while many, many people have gotten poorer, it has been the African American community, the indigenous community, the Latino community that have suffered the most. No question about that. And there is no question, and not debatable, that institutional racism exists in America today, and that has got to be frontally attacked. I will give you just one example, as you well know. This is unbelievable, but it's true. I was in a community called Sandytown, I think it was, in Baltimore. This is what goes on in a great American city today, Baltimore, Maryland. Walked into the community, and this is where Freddie Gray was killed, by the way. Walked into the community, there are no grocery stores. None. Mother cannot buy fresh fruit for her kids. There is not a bank in the community. You know what exists? Payday lenders who charge unbelievable. That's right. All right, and that's an issue we're going to deal with as well. People should not be making money out of desperately poor people. We know we have seen it too often on television. Unarmed people, often African American or other minorities, being shot by police officers. We must hold police officers and every other public official accountable when they break the law. We have seen in Ferguson and elsewhere an incredible militarization of local police departments. Police departments are not supposed to be occupying forces. They're supposed to be part of the community. We've got to make police departments look like the communities they serve in terms of their diversity. So in terms of dealing with institutional racism, in terms of dealing with a broken criminal justice system, this will be a major, major priority for a Sanders administration.
Thank you, Senator.